So in this world, there's special women, basically women that still can actually give birth or produce children. So by the time they're like 2 or 3, they're taken away from the other children. When the other children are split up by the age of 6, they're taken away by the age of 2 and 3, and taken away so they will not learn about humanity and learn to have, human rights, so they can be nothing but breeding machines. And let's just say the Melid's mom, the Melid's one of the few people to actually know who his bio mom is. The rest are split up between serving the military or being adopted in the districts or underground or serving in the, science labs. Like, he's one of the few people that know who his mom is, and she was sick and tired of this. She was sick and tired that basically their base was a beehive. And the fact that the special women were kept away and raised as breeding machines or breeding crop, and she was the few women who, special women that actually got to have a normal life. But the one time she found true love, that true love was taken from her. Like, the Melid killed his own bio father during a test. And she had been, affected, turned. And the reason why I hadn't been caught, and she'd been turned for years, the reason why I hadn't been caught was because she and other special women aren't tested, because they don't expect that the women who were raised like breeding machines never allowed outside. And she was one of the few women that were allowed to go from Garden of Eden to the science lab. And that's really only where she's allowed to go. Yeah, they didn't think they'd get affected. And she got affected, and she affected all the other women because she wanted to give them their freedom, their rights again, because they were stripped of it and raised as breedal cops. Like, they weren't even taught to have normal human rights because they wanted to keep these women impressionable and producing children. Like, when the main character is caught, he's basically framed for what happens with the Melid's mom, even though he's not truly at blame, and he kind of takes the blame too. And he's like tortured because they're trying to get information out of him. They're trying to find out where he's taken the spore because they haven't realized the spore was his child. He was the mushroom that the spore was from. They just think he's affected human. And so they're torturing him, trying to get information out of him. And he uses this as an opportunity to fake his death and escape with his spore, and he leaves the base. And the Melid had already dealt with the underground situation, so when he returns, he's given the mission to, go outside the base, capture the main character, kill the main character, and get the spore back, which is how the main character runs into the Melid. The Melid's plane and other helicopters hit the ground, and the main character, saved the Melid. And he was waiting for the Melid to kill him, but the Melid didn't. And they end up traveling together in the abyss, which is what the outside part is called. Outside the base, it's called the abyss. And yeah, they're traveling together, and they sooner or later figure out that the world is screwed. Like, the world is just fucking screwed. Used to, when you get infected, you just get a little, scratch, or, you drank some infection, and then later, stuff kept changing how the infection, and now you don't even have to touch something that's infected, you get infected. And I realized when they're looking at stuff, the stuff like metal, wood, combs, bottles, that stuff is also infected and turning into, monsters. Or small variations of monsters. And they're like, oh, we're just screwed. They're fucked. That's why the monsters have been acting strange and weird, is because they can sense it, and they had sensed it months ago, because bigger monsters were killing smaller monsters to the point there's literally no monsters except for the bigger ones, and the bigger ones were attacking each other or hiding away, because that's how fucked up the situation is, and the monsters were the only ones who notice it. Yeah. And the reason why the Melid's chasing after the main character for his spore again is because the spore is the only thing that could save humanity. It's what they believe could be the only thing that could save humanity. And the main character doesn't want to give up his spore. He doesn't want to reveal to the Melid where he's keeping the spore, but he finally decides to give up the spore to the Melid, because the more the spore grows in him, the more he's dying. He's literally dying to produce this child. That's his life mission. He has to produce this kid, and then he will die. And he's like, I'm dying. He also noticed the spore won't stay in him to, rest, so he can find a good place to, bury his spore and let his spore grow in the soil that the spore needs to grow in. And he realized the spore keeps trying to leave him to go to the Melid, so the main character just decides to give the spore to the Melid, and then he leaves so he could die. but he doesn't. And like I said in book one, these two are so romantic. Like, while they're in the abyss, the male lead is like the stereotypical big strong man and like the end of the world stories or any action film, and the main character is like the damsel in distress that always needs protected. That's literally their entire relationship during the abyss. And when they come across a grandfather and grandson, the grandfather sooner or later dies, and when the male lead returns back to the base after the main character gave him the spore, the kid went with the male lead, but like the kid even states that the main character and male lead's relationship is that of a couple. Like, they act like a couple because Mel Lead carries the main character everywhere or holds the main character in his arms so they can walk steadily. The Mel Lead's always protecting the main character. They're playing games together. They sleep in the same bed together. Like, they're acting like wife and husband. Like, Also, they do kiss. Before the main character gives the Mel Lead the spore, the Mel Lead, like, devours the main character. They don't go any farther than making out, but, like, they do kiss. They finally do kiss in book 2. And like when the male lead returns back to the base and he's having a conversation with the doctor's like, oh, have you guys done it yet? Like, it's obvious the main character doesn't have the ability of infecting people, even though he stated he did and he was the cause of everything. Like, no, the main character does not have the ability to, because you would have been infected already if he does. Especially after you guys spent the night together, and the male lead's like, I didn't spend the night with the main character. And he's like, well, booey. Shame on you. Shame on you. After the main character leaves the male lead, he discovers mutated humans living in a system together. And these humans are humans that gain back their consciousness and basically human forms or a bit of their human forms and are living together and helping control each other and keep each other in line. And they're just living together. They're helping each other survive. They're proof that human evolution can take new breakthroughs, and yes, sooner or later they will lose their minds and have to, be taken to the labs, but they're working together. And the main character also states this institute is a better place than the base was. People are actually happy and living and thriving, while the people on the base were just bees living in a bee hive. And the main character already knew about fusion, which was an experiment done where the humans were testing mutated humans or the monsters and experimenting on it and trying to fuse in the DNA together, or fusion animals with the monsters. And they were doing all this fusion data, and they were having breakthroughs. They were also having troubles and problems. And the base was like, no more. Try to break their, data. Like, they had one accident really happen, and the base was like, no more. And they had to run for their lives because the base was hunting them down. But yeah, now the main character is living with, people who are just like him. Well, technically, he is a mushroom that was, mutated by a human, while they're humans mutated by monsters. But yeah, he's living with them.